Welcome in, everybody, to the Heat Ratio Fantasy Firebox. I said it's a tongue twister, but Fantasy Firebox. We go live every Wednesdays. I'm your host, Tony Jigsaw Cotillo, joined by Dan Green, John Coker, Jason Sullivan. As always, Quad Box going. And even though the NFL regular season is over, there is NFL playoff fantasy to talk about, and there's some NBA fantasy as well. We're going to get into analytics of how we formulate our draft picks. We're going to talk about fantasy. Our boy John Coker is straight off a fantasy playoff draft. We'll get into playoff fantasy rankings. And then again, next week we will formulate more of an NBA style of a format, and we'll also start to bring in Major League Baseball a little bit as well. Just some off-season talk. So we have a lot to talk about. And we're going to try to fit this in an hour and 15 minutes. A lot of exciting things happening, a lot of new shows being announced for Heat Ratio Sports. We're going to give you 7 days a week. I can't wait. I'm super excited. But again, it's 2021. I know there's a lot of crazy shit happening right now, in the world. It's crazy, but this is the outlet to me. I did honestly think about saying, let's not do the show tonight. But you know what? I need to get off of mainstream media. I need to get my mind right. And this is an outlet. Whether you think everybody deals with things a certain way, and I think this is a good way to deal with bringing everybody together under one context. So, Dan, what's up, buddy? How you doing? You got a new mic set up, new computer set up? You're like the high tech guy tonight. What's up?
Yeah, I'm trying to be like my mentor, I would have worn a gray sweatshirt if I had known.
Yeah, I didn't even realize me and Jason wearing gray. Yeah. You could have worn a Steelers jersey.
Things are going well. Things are going well, and I agree with everything you just said. This is an outlet. It's good seeing friends on the screen. The familiar questions that get scrolled across. It's definitely relief from daily life, work, stress, and the news.
Without a doubt. We got what's up, Mike? Mike checking in already. He said, "Let's get John some mic time today." John, John's always the last one. I love it. John's always the last one. He's so quiet and cool too, man. Cool as a cucumber.
Well, hey, I speak when spoken to. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Mike says we all do. It's overwhelming. This is a nice break. I get it, man. It's actually much needed. It's much needed. And let's just get right into it. Let's talk about the NFL playoffs because I'm pumped. I am because, as you know, I just posted. I had a tremendous interview with Alexa Ross the other day, and I get to hear her side because I'm a huge Buffalo Bills guy in the sense that I think there's so many fantasy prospects on that team. It's an exciting team. I picked them to go far. I like what they're doing. There's a Philadelphia connection. Alexa is a Philadelphia native, which is great. So I got the Philadelphia side to everything, and now I'm pumped because I'm thinking, you know what? If I'm going into NFL playoff fantasy, and I know there's two different formats, and there's, like John has done a draft, and he's actually drafting a team. But what I could also say is there's survivor type league where, which is what I'm more familiar with the traditional format of, listen, I need to pick the one quarterback who I think is going to go farthest, who I think is going to be the most productive. And you're not allowed to pick the same, more than one player on the same team, which is very interesting. So I've done them as well. So if I pick Josh Allen, then Stephon Diggs is out. I can't. I have a Buffalo Bill and I'm done. So there's times where you actually have to take a kicker for the one team you think may not go the farthest. So maybe I'm taking a kicker for the Cleveland Browns. Who knows, right? I mean, that's the kind of format that I'm used to. But John, I want to ask you right off the bat. We're going to give you the mic time right off the bat here for my man Mike, because he is right. You're coming straight from a draft. How did your draft work? Are you allowed to draft an entire team, an entire roster, just like normal fantasy?
Well, yeah, no bench spots. So it's starters, quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, flex, tight end, kicker, D. Just your standard format. Well, no, it's a half-point PPR. I mean, this is the playoff league for the regular season league we're in. But so same scoring applies, but basically, there's no bench spots, so whoever you take, you get as long as they're in the playoffs. So, first pick is Patrick Mahomes, followed by Kamara, Josh Allen, Kelsey, Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs. We did not move outside of Kansas. Yeah, we didn't move outside of Kansas City, Green Bay, and Buffalo, and those are pretty much the 3 guarantees. Well, and Kamara, with Saints, New Orleans. But truthfully, he's the only proven offensive weapon this year. So that's pretty much how it goes. I mean, second pick of the second round, I ended up with Derrick Henry. I didn't want him. He might be one and done. But looking at the other running backs that were out there, and I'm like, you know what? One game of Derrick Henry is like 2 guys. I mean, think about it. What's Clyde Edwards-Helaire actually going to put up stat-wise? If he puts up 40 yards a game, and doesn't find the end zone, 3 weeks of it, I mean, that's great. But so, I mean, I didn't get too many of those long-standing teams. I had the 9th overall pick. So at least I had 8 guys that I was targeting, and I ended up with Diggs, which was the last of those guys. But I got Brady, a quarterback. The team ended up all right. My running backs I got with Chubb and Henry. It scares me having the early exits.
Oof.
But, I mean, Aaron Jones and Kamara are really the only 2 running backs that are like locks. Outside of that, you just have a ton of question marks because you don't know how far the teams are going to go. Of course, I had to do my rankings, but you got Derrick Henry's the best, but maybe play 1 game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the most games, but not that good. You look at Buffalo's backfield, Singletary and Moss. It's not really, behind Kamara, Jones. I mean, what are you going to take? Jamal Williams? Maybe. I mean, if you want to add up the games, but running backs thin. Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery, all these good backs that in theory might have 1 game.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say some of the better backs, they have no games, right?
Chris Carson got snagged from and that's where I kind of saw myself living, was in those tweener games. I ended up getting Akers late, thinking, look, if they get through the 1 round and he's getting bell cow workload. Robert Woods was out there late. I didn't really love him, but if he gets 2 games, it's not easy. And I ended up having to take Thomas at tight end. Second to last round. It's only 1 game, but go get 8 for 80 and a touchdown. And I mean, and there's guys that are taking Jared Cook and all these knuckleheads. So it may work out.
You don't know it's only for 1 game. I'm telling you, man. I tweeted it out today. Of any game, I think I told you last night. I'll say it again today. Washington has a good chance to beat Tampa Bay. It's just my feeling, man.
I'm getting more and more of that feeling too.
See?
Me too.
See?
Me too. Yeah.
I'll tell you, man. Mike says I should say thank you for bringing us all this amazing content. Mike, listen, I can tell you what, Mikey V has been a supporter of mine and this show for 3 years now, easily. So we appreciate people like you, Mike. Seriously, I know you've hit me up on Instant Messenger and we've talked about all kinds of things, and you've been amazing. People like you is what we enjoy doing this, right? Al, what's up? Me, Al. We and Al talk. We're, me, Al. I got to talk to Andre. I bet to send him a message today, so we could get our basketball talk going up on a Sunday night, which is going to be fun. And Mike says, aren't all them teams with Chiefs and Packers screwed this week? I mean, it's funny because John, you shed the light on.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, right. I mean, you think about it, right? I mean.
And the place to go is the number 2 seed. I was all over Buffalo because in theory they could get the 4 games. They're most likely to get the 4 games. Same thing with New Orleans. You look at them 2 seeds that not only now have to play in the wild card round, but yeah, you're absolutely right. They're missing a game right off the giddy up. So if they lose, I mean, in theory, the Chiefs could have 1 game. They don't play the wild card weekend. They play 1 game, and if they get upset or Buffalo gets upset by Pittsburgh, I'm just saying.
No, you're right. So let me ask you guys this. That's a good question. So thinking about the quarterback position, who goes in your mind? Would you select Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers first? I'm just curious because I know, John, you said in your draft it sounded like what was Aaron Rodgers, the 3rd quarterback selected?
Yeah. In this league, I was taking Allen first because of the potential 4 games.
I was going right. Okay, because of the rushing attack and the rushing capabilities.
Yep.
But I just think Aaron Rodgers has just completely got disrespected in the fantasy community this year. I don't know if it's because nobody really predicted him having such a bomb-ass year this year, and we just really haven't even focused on his 44-plus touchdowns and only like single-digit interceptions. I mean, I don't know if anybody's even realized that it's probably the best year of his career, which is crazy. And again, in the playoff style format, I'll tell you what, the only thing that's got to make you think just a little bit, the only guy that hasn't been there has been Josh Allen. And I'm not saying that Josh Allen is going to flounder, but I just think that, out of the top 3 guys you mentioned with Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers, I just think that for me, I think I would take Aaron Rodgers first, man. I do. I really do. Because I think personally that Rodgers has an open ticket to the Super Bowl this year. And I don't think that Patrick Mahomes is guaranteed. And I would take him above Josh Allen. What do you think, Jason?
See, I was going to go Josh Allen too. I would probably go Aaron Rodgers second, I think. I think you're right about the NFC, though. The NFC is not strong. I mean, no. The Packers are probably going to make Super Bowl, right? So, I don't know. The thing I like about Josh Allen, though, is the weapons. I mean, obviously, Aaron Rodgers has Devontae Adams, but I just like the weapons that they have. Seems like Buffalo's kind of clicking right at the right time, too. So, I would say everything factored in, I would probably go Allen first, but I like Rodgers, too. I definitely see your point on that.
Dan, what do you think, buddy?
If you asked me without giving your feedback first, I probably would have jumped on Allen. But the experience factor, can be a huge benefit on the Rodgers side. But ultimately, when you design your playoff fantasy format, you really want to see what team or player can you project going the most games. And with this unique year, you can get 4 games out of players. So with that possibility, you have to go Josh Allen because you can get 4 games out of him.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, it's all about the 4 games. It's all about how many games you can get. And Andre says Aaron Rodgers all day, unless Aaron Rodgers has some weird thing happen to him. You go.
Andre's right. You're going to get 3 games out of Aaron Rodgers. I'm convinced of that.
Yeah,
but
you're
Tony, Josh Allen was your Super Bowl. I mean, the Bills were your Super Bowl pick, so you have to go Josh Allen.
Oh, me? Absolutely.
Yeah, you.
Yeah, me, absolutely. But we're talking about 2 teams here, right? We're talking about 2 teams, NFC. So, I don't know, man. Listen, he is my Super Bowl pick, but I think Aaron Rodgers is going to get to the Super Bowl too. So I'm allowed to pick Aaron Rodgers over Josh Allen because
I get that, but you're going to get
Super Bowl. It's all good, right?
You get 4 games though if Allen goes to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's true because they don't have a bye. That's true. That's what's tough, man. That's why I like daily fantasy. Screw this traditional crap, man.
Yeah. Let me start over. Exactly.
Yeah, too much thinking here, man. There's too much thinking. Mike wants to ask John: is it a weekly matchup or total playoff point total at the end?
Total at the end.
Oh, okay.
Total at the end, so it just keeps adding up. You could be in first place and get overtaken in that last week if you ain't got any guys going.
Okay.
Right? I think last year I ended up sneaking into second place with like my kicker in like the Super Bowl.
My God. What I mean? Who's your kicker?
Whoever played in the Super Bowl. I don't know. You just keep inching away. You know what I mean?
Come on, man. You're supposed to have that rock hard memory.
No, it's
right? Chiefs kicker, maybe.
It might have been. Yeah, I might. Yeah, it might have been Butker. But yeah, like I was sitting around like 3-4 going into like the championship games, and then I had one guy going, and I snuck into second place.
Wow, I love it. I love it. You just never know. You just never know. Rich Tech checks in. What's up, Rich? How you doing, buddy? 44-5. Wow, look at that. 44-5. Wow.
You know what, too? I think you brought up a good point earlier. It feels like he's disrespected still, right? I mean, it seems like that in daily fantasy even. It's like every single week I look at him and he's like the 4th or 5th best or highest priced quarterback. It's like, what are you watching? It's like, if anything, maybe 2, but not lower than 2 ever. It seems like.
Yeah, Jason, you're spot on. You remember about 4 weeks ago, he was on fire and he was only valued at 6,800 and Jackson was like 8,000. We're like, how could that be? And we all jumped over on Rodgers that week. $6,800. Aaron Rodgers, like less than a month ago.
That's crazy.
It is crazy
for essentially a guy who's guaranteeing you 250 to 300 and 3 touchdowns every single week. It's just it's mind boggling to me. I don't know what it is. It's crazy. Al says, yeah, who has 44 touchdowns in the season and he has not talked about every day of the week? Exactly. It's crazy. He's absolutely right. Andre says, I know we talk of fantasy, but Bradley Beal has 45 points and it's only the 4th quarter. Ooh. Andre, that's okay because that's a DFS absolute stud tonight in Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal has been on fire. We're going to talk NBA later, but he's one of those guys that you got to keep in your lineup every single week. I can't wait to talk some NBA in a little bit. But let's go down the NFL rankings a little bit because, again, even if you're picking the survivor type league, we have to figure out, who those guys are going to be. You heard what John's guys were, what the consensus was in the traditional snake type draft. But what about if you could, and let's set this scenario up. Let's say that you can only take one quarterback one player from each team. So you have to formulate a lineup of a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, a kicker, and a defense. So put that in your minds right now and think about your overall rankings of your quarterbacks and your running backs and your receivers, etc. And think about who would be that guy. Who would you start off with? Who would your quarterback? Because let's look at it like this. If you're getting Patrick Mahomes, that means you can't touch Kelsey or Tyreek Hill. If you take Josh Allen, you can't touch Stephon Diggs. If you take Aaron Rodgers, you're not taking Devontae Adams or Aaron Jones. So you got a big decision to make at the quarterback position. So I'm curious. So, John, I'm going to go right to you first. If we're talking survival type fantasy and you can only pick one guy from each team, who's going to be the quarterback you start with? Yeah, see, I know it's tough.
Yeah, not fully grasping. I'm looking at the guys that are going to spread it around. So I'm looking at a Tom Brady, a Ben Roethlisberger. Now, when you said who am I starting off with, obviously I have Brady in higher regards than Roethlisberger in terms of passing stats. But those would be the types of guys that I'm looking at. Where you can't necessarily count from week to week who that go-to receiver is going to be,
But what about the amount of games that they play? So if you get Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger and say they only play 2 games, that's your quarterback. Right? Don't you? I mean, how do you wash that out and say I want to pick a quarterback? Like we just talked about Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen, or Patrick Mahomes.
So okay, I got it now. I didn't realize it lasted the whole. I thought it was week to week.
I'm sorry. So yes, this lasts the entire playoffs. Once that first kickoff happens, your lineup is locked and you're not allowed to change it.
Yeah, that changes it a bit. I mean, those are still like the guys that I would look at after the top guys were gone, and I still feel that the top 3 are the top 3, and Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes. So, if that's a tough one.
Yes.
That's a tough one. My thought process here is Josh Allen is getting the rushing stats, so you don't have to necessarily depend on the receiver. He also got John Brown, Beasley, like he got guys to spread it to. But I like him there. If you don't get Adams for Rodgers, I mean, it's hit or miss on all the rest of their receivers anyway. I don't know. I flip a coin.
I love it. I don't care.
But you know what?
Faster.
But seriously, like even in fantasy drafts, that's what I always end up doing. That's where, like, you know what? I won't make the decision. I'll let somebody else make the decision for me, and I'll take whoever's left. Like if I got a tier of guys, you know what I mean? I do it all the time.
But when you think about it, the way it's presented, it's a really tough concept because, you have such great receivers that are attached to these quarterbacks. And if you can only pick one, I mean, Stephon Diggs and Davante Adams are the best 2 fantasy wide receivers in all the game. So, but they also play with 2 of the best fantasy quarterbacks. Okay. So, before I go to Dan and Jason, I'll just go and I'll tell you right now that I would go with Mahomes. I even though Josh Allen's my guy, I'd much rather have a Devontae or a Stephon than Tyreek Hill. So, and you guys know that I'm not concerned about the tight end position as much as a lot of people. So I'm not really worried about Kelsey. So for me, for my money, I got to go Patrick Mahomes. I would start there. That wipes out the Chiefs. That still gives me the ability that takes Stephon Diggs because he's the only other guy, in my opinion, in Buffalo because you're not taking any running backs. And then in Green Bay, even though I missed out on Davante Adams, I can grab Aaron Jones. So to me, I'm starting off Patrick Mahomes, Stephon Diggs, and Aaron Jones, and going from there. So, Jason, what do you think, buddy?
It's tough. I would start Josh Allen, and I see your point about Stephon Diggs, and it hurts to not be able to take Diggs. But I don't think you can count on any of the other weapons in that offense. So yeah, you're kind of bypassing Diggs, which hurts. But I mean, those other receivers, they're kind of hit and miss between the 3 of them. The running backs are garbage. So. Yeah, I'm going Josh Allen and then hoping that I get one of those, either Davante Adams, probably Davante Adams would be my next pick if he's there.
So if you take Josh Allen, so who's your running back? So let's just look at it that way. So let's think you have to start off with your quarterback, your receiver, running back. So you're going to go Josh Allen, Davante Adams. That wipes out those 2 teams. So who's your running back?
Look, let me just ask a quick question. So are you drafting 1 or 2 running backs?
It's not a draft. Plug and play. It's plug and play, right, Tone? You set up your own lineup. Regardless, right. Another person could have the same exact lineup as you.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah,
this is not a draft.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I got
it.
I'm going Josh Allen, Davante Adams, and Kamara. I like Kamara because I think he's the most proven of the running backs, kind of like John said earlier. I'm not sure how good the Saints are and how long they're going to be in the playoffs, but I just hope that when he's there, even if it's 2 games, I hope that he puts up huge numbers. I think he's going to need to for the Saints to win, so I like Kamara a lot. He's my favorite running back.
I like it because I always forget about the Saints. Kamara's a good pick. What do you think, Dan? What do you got?
Well, when you started proposing this, I wrote down Allen, Kamara, Dobbins. I think you might get 2 games out of Dobbins. And I have Adams, Deontay Johnson. I think the same thing with the Steelers. You might get 2, possibly 3 games out of them. And I have Kelsey at tight end. So those are my players that are not on the same team.
You could get very creative, which I love about it.
You have to.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and I would have never approached this starting at the quarterback position.
Okay.
So that's why I was like a little like
okay
dancing all over the place. I mean, for me, it's all right. Who has the biggest advantage? And to me, it's Kamara. So you look at him. To me, he is heads and tails above everybody else. So boom, I'm locking it in. And you kind of go down through there. I need one of Allen, Rodgers, Mahomes. So looking at the thing at everything, I would probably go. I would like to take Kelsey, get rid of Mahomes. Then I'm going with either Diggs or Adams and taking Allen or Rodgers.
Yeah.
But now I have those locked in. You know what I mean? And then I would progress from there. But it's really starting out at the position scarcity or that one that's it's like there's no question Kelsey is the number one tight end. I don't care how many games he plays. I don't care who else is in the playoffs. Yeah. He's the number one tight end. Give me him. Same thing with Kamara. I feel like that is the lock. I mean, Aaron Jones sometimes, doesn't always show up game to game. Henry, and, you start looking at how many games they could potentially play. Kamara is a lock. And then you just putz around with the receivers and quarterbacks because, yes, most elite quarterbacks have that go-to receiver. So you're going to have to decide one or the other.
Well, that's the thing, too, about the quarterbacks is that they're, like you said, the three quarterbacks, it's like, I agree with plugging in the rest of your roster first because if you get any of those three quarterbacks, you're happy about it.
So. Right.
I never thought about that way. And that's why I proposed this question, which is great because, I've only done it for probably about 5 years, but I've never actually sat down and had an actual science like that because I'm so worried about the amount of games that everybody's playing, right? So, which is great. I like this because I never thought about that. I completely missed the boat on Kamara. I didn't even think about him because I'm so fixated on Green Bay and Buffalo as my Super Bowl picks. So I'm not even thinking about Alvin Kamara, which is, he is the only guy on the Saints that's worth starting in the playoffs, in my opinion, too. I mean, do you guys feel any different? I mean, do you really ride the Emmanuel Sanders train? I don't think so.
Well, it depends on
Michael Thomas is back too. Yeah, Michael Thomas is back too. I don't know if that makes a difference for you. But I don't know if I have that much confidence in him either. It's after this year.
Exactly. I mean, because you don't know how healthy he's going to be. Right. Even though he's back, we really know how healthy he's actually going to be. How is he going to play? How is he going to, how's he going to, I can't believe we're sitting here thinking about how he's going to be able to be fit into the offense because he was the offense, right? It's just such a terrible year for him. And you got the Taysom Hill factor. How often is, Sean Payton going to use Taysom Hill? So, which is going to take away from Drew Brees if anybody's worried about starting Drew Brees, which I don't think they would, but you just never know. You never know. Another thing is the tight ends. Let's talk about the tight ends because, Dan mentioned he's got Jason Kelce. Okay. So besides besides Travis Kelce, I mean, who else are you even looking at the tight end? I mean, do you say, does Robert Tonyan become your number 2 tight end just because of longevity, in the playoffs?
Well, he's also becoming a favorite target outside of Adams.
Yeah.
He's getting 5-6 targets a game. Seems like he gets a touchdown a week, doesn't it, Jason?
Yeah, he's got, I think, 10 touchdowns this year, 11 touchdowns. So
yeah. Well, and again, you can take a flyer on Mark Andrews maybe if you think Baltimore's going to do something.
Yeah, you mentioned about Dobbins too. Maybe I'm getting 2 games. So that's a good point. What's up, John?
Oh no, like I have my playoff cheat sheet in front of me because I just did.
Of course,
I got to throw something together. It's very rudimentary. I mean, I took the year-to-date stats of all the players, basically just divided by 16, so it's not a true accurate, average points per game. And then I took only the playoff teams and basically put the number of games that I'm estimating. You know what I mean? 3, 2. Some of I think 1.5, whatever. Just the weighting to get an idea of how much those games mean. And then I just plugged it in, so I got my little cheat sheet. But yeah, Kelsey's won with a big margin of like 58 points. Then you got Tonyan at 33, and then you got a bunch of the next 10 guys are between 18 and 10. So those are the two that really stand above, everybody else. It's not a game
Andrews, of Tanya, excuse me.
I got Andrews at 4 behind Jared Cook.
Where do you have Ebron?
I don't even have him.
He didn't make the list.
Oh no, he's at 6 behind Gronk. Like I said,
that's a good pick too.
Well, like I said, this was not like I didn't rank them 1 through 6. This just was on their average points per game, taking the totals divided by 16 and then multiplying out Kelsey 3 games, Tonyan 3, Jared Cook 3, Andrews 2, Gronk 2, Ebron 2. And then you have Logan Thomas at 1.25 games. I'm saying they got a 25% chance of winning. So 1.25 times his average, but that still puts him in ninth, is the 9th tight end.
Okay, we're back. Sorry, I lost connection there for a second. So Rich says Tonyan gets about 2 or 3 targets in the end zone per week the last 5 games. Listen, you're right. I mean, he is a huge red zone threat because everybody's so focused on Davante Adams. They're double and triple teaming a guy. I don't think I've ever seen teams roll coverage over to a receiver more than they've had this year to Davante Adams. I mean, we've seen it with D-Hop. We've seen it with Michael Thomas, but I've never seen the amount of focus that teams put on Davante. I mean, it's amazing. Another receiver that the Eagles.
And yet, how many times is he wide open?
I was going to say, and it doesn't even matter.
Yes, that's a great point.
This is one of the greatest wide receiver years in a while, in my opinion.
It is. And
he's been that good.
Yes, he has. And he's consistent. That's the thing. I mean, my man has been consistent, which is absolutely amazing, really. It's what he's been able – and listen, let's face it. It's a reason why Aaron Rodgers has 44 touchdowns. If you go over the years and you look what Aaron Rodgers has done, he's always locked onto that one receiver. He's had – I mean, we can name – you go back to Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, Javon Walker. Yep. Right? I mean, he's always locked Jordy Nelson. On somebody. Right?
Yeah, Jordy.
Jordy Nelson. Go back to
Cobb.
Randall Cobb was one of them. You go with Sterling Sharp, right? Or that was
that's
Favre. I'm thinking
that's
of
Favre and the Magic Man.
Yeah, I'm thinking of just Green Bay in general because I mean, you go back to Favre with Antonio Freeman, Robert Brooks. I mean, these are guys that you've always had that presence in Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers loves the number 1 receiver. I'll tell you that. Yep. 100%. Rich says, or he just cuts the ball triple coverage
exactly.
for Adams. Exactly, it's nuts. Absolutely nuts. I mean, here you go. And again, this is a little off the rails a little bit, and we're going to talk about this in other shows. But does he automatically, is there any scenario where you see he's not the number 1 rated wide receiver in fantasy going into the drafts next year? Dan, what do you think? Anybody else?
Is Adams not the number 1 is what you're saying?
Yep.
No, he's the number 1.
I mean, because it was Michael Thomas this year. Because Michael Thomas came in as a number 1 wide receiver. He got hurt, so he had a bad year based on injury.
You have to also think of a lot of these teams have the second guy. Adams does not have the second guy. If Julio Jones comes back, you got Jones and Ridley. If Michael Thomas comes back healthy, he's kind of the only guy also. But and Diggs, pretty much the only guy. I mean, there's nice supplemental players. I think Gabriel Davis will get much better next year. There's always Beasley. But there's nobody that is so head and shoulders above the second guy on his team as Davante Adams. So I think for sure he's the number 1 overall wide receiver pick next year.
That's a good point. I mean, because if you think about it, even like you said, I mean, you talk about those top 5 wide receivers in the NFL, and every single one of them has a number 2 guy, except for Davante Adams. So I mean,
Jefferson has Thielen. There's too many. There's so many. Yeah.
Except, wait a minute. Actually, except Stephon Diggs.
I said Diggs.
Right?
I said Diggs. Okay. I said he's got potentially better complementary guys. I think Davis has a nice future. We know Beasley's there.
John
McKenzie. But Adams is it. And if you also want to talk about an interesting thing, you referencing Rodgers. He's always had that one guy, and he's made so many mediocre guys very good. Geronimo Allison, those type of guys, Lazard. Imagine those guys on the Eagles. They would be J.J. Arcega-Whiteside.
He might,
but Rodgers makes Geronimo Allison a viable threat.
Who, by the way, was a Detroit Lion this year, but he just didn't play.
And that's why we don't know who Geronimo Allison is anymore.
That's right.
But when he was on Green Bay, he was Valdez-Scantling and Lazard.
Poor Jason, man. Detroit always comes into the mix, man. I'm sorry, Jay. Detroit always comes into the mix.
Hey, if they were good 5 years ago, we want them. Okay, all right. That's how we operate. You got to be 5 years past your prime, and then we'll take you.
Man, well, let me tell you, we will continue to talk fantasy football. On the Heat Ratio Sports Twitter account, we will throw out some picks out there for DFS this weekend. Who we're thinking it's just too early on a Wednesday to formulate that kind of thing, because right now, especially with the Cleveland game, like we talked last night, you just never know what to expect with the COVID issues that are going on. Injury factor. There's just so many things. So what I want to start doing, because what happens is we formulate lineups on Wednesday, and then they become stagnant and old by Friday. And then, Dan's texting me and John and Jay, and we're like, oh, we have to change this up. It's not worth it. So what we'll do is, I've been doing it for NBA. We'll do it for, this weekend. Just a couple picks here and there. We're thinking, guys. And then, listen, the best thing is if you have 4 guys right here and we each give you 4 lineups and you want to take a couple pieces from each and let us know. Tell me if we sucked. Tell me, oh, man, you were terrible this week. I'll take it. It's all good, man. I love it. I love constructive criticism. So it'll be fun for sure. So I want to parlay into NBA because we're hell bent on making this show hour and 15 minutes. At least I know I am, because it's been going on too long. And unfortunately, I love you guys all, but I look at you guys too much throughout the course of the week. Nah, I'm just kidding. But anyway, NBA has been a breath of fresh air to me. I'll be honest, where I did not start doing NBA fantasy until up to last year. The year before last year, I did traditional, and I really didn't like it because I hate the everyday putting lineups in and changing things out. I don't have enough time for that. I run a damn PR company. I'm a full-time coach and dad and husband, fantasy guy. I'm done. I got no time, right? So I was always the guy who was forgetting to put lineups in. So then I was introduced to DFS, which I absolutely love, because guess what? We play our Heat Ratio League, which will be get back on track this Friday. There were some issues with it. I fixed that. It's all good. So we will be playing on Fridays. And it's once a week, a Friday night slate, which I love. So I want to talk to you guys about, because, on my final judgment piece this week on The Gambler, we were talking about, the formulation of lineups and what we do as far as analytics, not specific players, but theories, the way we construct our lineup, because in NBA, it's a lot different. People don't realize that. It's completely different from football, because NBA can change up until 20 minutes before game time. And that's the worst thing about it. So you really need to be on the computer and making sure you get the actual updates, 10 minutes before tip-off, because you just don't know what's going to happen. And you have to look at other things. In football, week to week, it's like, okay, they played a rough game last week. You don't have to worry about your, Derrick Henry sitting the following week or getting only 10 carries. But you damn sure have to expect maybe Kawhi Leonard getting a night off, or Joel Embiid, or maybe Joel only plays 10 minutes. I'll give you an example. The other night, I started Tobias Harris because he's been so hot in Charlotte. They were up so big, he barely played in the second half. It killed my DraftKings lineup. And that's not, and that's my bad by looking at, saying Tobias going to have a big game against a bad team, but not also saying the Sixers are playing so well against a bad team, they might get up early and kill my lineup. So I'm just curious. So, Jason, in an NBA perspective, give me, you don't have to go through the whole thing, but give me one thing at least that maybe, is one of your theories, or kind of like one of your rules of thumb when you're formulating your DFS lineup for NBA.
So I keep it simple. I do 3 things. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll Twitter for injuries. You want to find those value guys that, I'm trying to think of, like, Karl Anthony Towns has been hurt, right? You want to find the guy who's starting for him. You want to find that cheap option. So I do that. I try to find my value plays first. And then to start to build my lineup, I always look. My buddy Josh, who's going to be doing the baseball show for us, told me this tip, and I always do this. I always try to look for guards that rebound and big guys that get a lot of assist numbers, and that's where I build from. I typically build from the center position out. I want to find a center that's going to get me all around points, like Jokic or somebody like that, who's going to get a ton of assists, and I start from there, and then I try to find my second positions, like I said, is guards that rebound. I want to find a guard that's going to put up 8-9 rebounds a game. And then I build out from there.
I like that. I like that theory because the center position is a very peculiar position because there's about 5 guys on a nightly basis that are absolute studs. And after that, it's kind of like, can you catch the right guy on the right night? So if there's 20 guards that can put up 50 points, there's 20 forwards that can, but there's probably only 5 centers. So you want to get that one guy, which I like that theory. So Dan, what do you got for NBA DFS?
And I completely concur with both you guys. You have to track injuries. The NBA in particular is renowned for resting players last second, and especially with the tight schedule and COVID, you really have to stay on top of it. But one of the things I do is I like to set tier values. You've got I try to do guys above 45 to 60 points as my monster players. And if one of those guys is playing, I try to build around a monster player. And then I have the 40 to 45 point tier, try to squeeze one of those guys in.
Yep.
And exactly what you said, if I can squeeze like Giannis and put him at the power forward, because he's put in power at the power forward and center position, so you can go either way with him. And then you try to get a Clint Capella in your lineup, who's been awesome this year, or a Jared Allen as your center at lower value, even Enes Kanter. So that's what I do. I try to find the monster player, build around that guy, and then go tier levels.
I like it. The monster player is huge, and it's
Westbrook, Harden, Giannis, those type of guys.
Yeah, and it's just like football too, though. That if you pick that monster player and he doesn't produce, you're screwed. Right? Yeah. If you're going to pay 10 G's or 11 G's for James Harden and he don't give you 60 or 70 points, you're done. Yep. You're done. I mean, unless you get really lucky and a John Collins goes off or a Julius Randle and gives you 70, you're kind of screwed. So, but I like that theory that you got to build around a beast. You have to.
That's it. Build around a beast.
Yeah, you do. And I threw this out there before I did John, and when you mentioned Beast, that was one of the decisions that I kind of came up with, the other night I was facing. I really like James Harden. And then I was like, wow, $11,100 for James Harden. It's a huge number. And then I looked at John Wall, who was only $7,400. And I looked at Christian Wood, who's having another phenomenal. He had a phenomenal year last year, Detroit. We talked about him in the preseason, and he is balling in Houston. And he was $7,500. So I'm like, so for $14,900, I can get 2 guys that I think could give me 50-plus points. And for $4,000 more, I'm going to pay for James Harden. But he might only give me 60. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go with the other. It didn't work because John Wall only gave me like 23 and Christian Wood only gave me like 25. So my theory was to shit. But at least it was realistic and it had, you know what I mean? It had a lot of guidance behind it. It just didn't work out. But that's the way I feel. I hate, I want to find the beast, but I don't want to pay $10,000. So I don't know if that's possible on a nightly basis. Right. I think it is, but it's really hard to find them. I'll tell you that.
Hey, can I add one more point to my theory too?
Yeah, man.
So I agree completely with what everything was said. But you also got to look. So say Russ is out, right? You're tracking injuries. Russ is out. I'm not always going to go to his backup, but sometimes if Russ is out, I'm going to Bradley Beal. I think Bradley Beal is going to put up 60. So you got to look at those kind of things too. You got to look at what does so-and-so do when guys like Russ, who doesn't play back-to-backs, he sits all the time. So what does Bradley Beal do? Well, he scores 50-plus points every time that Russ doesn't play. So you got to look at that kind of stuff too.
Or he does it tonight with Russ playing.
Right, exactly. Bradley Beal's just awesome, period.
He is, man. I love Bradley Beal. I've always been a Beal fan.
And Tone, can I say one more thing? Another thing I've been trying to track. I try to find, like, I don't know why my magic number is in the 40-point range is value for me in players. I'm trying to find teams that have 3 of those in the 40 tier and above range. And right now the Sixers have Harris, Embiid, and Simmons. And that's something to think about too. And going along with what Jason said, if Embiid has his one day off a week, Simmons becomes that much more valuable. Again, you might not like his game for the things he doesn't do, but fantasy-wise, he's a beast.
Yeah, I completely agree. He has been 60 points, man, like plus this year in DFS, and it's
he's a guaranteed prop bet with rebounds.
Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you what, I'm getting really good at
every
that.
night.
Yes,
6.5 points, rebounds every night. Like go over every night.
I tell you, man, Jason hit on the guards at the rebounds, because that's when I've been hitting my parlays is on the rebounds at the guards. I mean, there is, internally, if you like parlays, like the single game parlay by FanDuel to me is extraordinary. It is. I don't care what anybody says. I love it. And if you get to formulate the right lineup, the right guard, like Marcus Smart is like a prop over machine every single game. His rebounds are at like 5.5, and he grabs like 9. Like I must have hit the over on Marcus Smart like 13 times in a row. Like I know it's exaggeration because they haven't played 13 games. I'll just say he's been phenomenal. So it's a really, really good statistic to look at. It is. I know Dan puts about 30 lines in every night. I got Dan addicted now too. So he's doing good though. I like it. I like it. So John, What theories you got for us? What would you like to elaborate on because you are the guy with the stat sheets and the guy with the analytics. So I'd like to hear the way you formulate your NBA DFS lineup.
Well, I just had 3 experts go in front of me. I mean, you can't reinvent the wheel. I mean,
I didn't even tell you my theory yet.
Well, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is the injuries. And yes, it's not always the backup. It's who's going to fill in with minutes. If you're shifting the lineup around. So that's one of the biggest things. But also when I look at guys, and this applies to any daily sport, I mean, there's a multiplier that I want to get to in terms of their expected points and their salary. So ideally, NBA, I'm always looking at 6x, which is, that's good. Like if I could get to 6x. So, that's what I'm looking at. But I look at, how the players have been trending, too, over the past few games. I mean, the NBA is a long season. Guys go on hot streaks, cold streaks. Guys are out with a nagging injury for a couple games. So I'm looking at not only, what their average, they have an average on the year, but what have they done the past couple games? And then you got to also take into consideration, all right, well, was it a bad, against a bad team? Was it a blowout? You can't just take it at face value. If a team just got blown out, and this guy all of a sudden gets 30 minutes in the game, that he's going to go right back to 10 minutes like the next night. So yeah, that's the only other thing I really look at is the recent trends of the player, and I don't think I ever take a guy where his past 3 game average is below his average. I want the past 3 games to be above, what his season average is, just in general.
I like it.
That's a great point.
I didn't think about.
And Tone, to build on what John said, do we think? I mean, we hope, but do we think Tobias Harris is going to keep this up? It's right on John's point. Tobias Harris.
The right thing, hope.
No, right. They always said Doc is the coach for him. Maybe it's finally going to come to fruition, but it really fits John's point to a T. John, if you hit Tobias Harris 3 or 4 straight games, he's above his average. He's been on fire. But if you see a trend where it's going back down with him, which it could, I hope it doesn't, that's right to John's point.
I agree. Absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest things is that, game to game average. It's one of the things I I'll tell you what, when we talk about the single game parlay and talk about over prop bets, I think one of the hardest overs to hit on are guys like Tobias Harris when it comes to his point total. I hate the 28 to 29 point totals because they are so tough. That 28.5 number, people don't realize how big that is. I stay away from that with every player. I don't even touch it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't go higher than 23. I want, I don't even touch it. I'll go to rebounds and assists before I do that number. And I don't like the flip-flop guy. I don't like the guy when you look at his assists who gets 7 one game, 2 the next, 9 the next, 2 before, and then I'm out. Like, I want nothing to do with that dude. Like, 0. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so tough. I mean, there's a lot, and that's what I wanted to say to everybody. And I hope they understand that. And this isn't a knock on anybody or a shot at anybody either, because I don't do that kind of thing. Only certain people who will remain nameless. But what I will say is, you have to understand how much research goes into the way we pick our players. Me, Dan, Jason, John, and all the other guys that work with us, the guys that we know, we network with, we don't just go to a list and be like, I'm picking him, and him. Listen, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest. Like, I'll put in 4, 5, 6, 7 parlays and 2 lineups every single night. And I spend 3 hours and I'm looking at every game. I'm looking at the past 2 games. I spend a ton of time on it. I do because, and guess what? Just so we would not be able to sit here and talk the way we do so fluidly if we didn't look at these kind of things. Every single one of us can rattle off numbers that we've seen, not because we wrote them down on a piece of paper, because it's stuff that we study. We have muscle memory. So what I will say about theories, one of my biggest theories is I like the stack method in basketball, but I don't like doing guys that play in the paint. So my point is, I want to stack a guard and a center, a guard and a forward, not a forward and a center, because on some teams, they're going to be fighting for the same kind of production. And I see a lot of teams that do that. A lot of people set their lineups up, and they're starting a 4 and a 5. To me, that's hypocritical. Why would you do that? Because if it might not just be points, it's definitely going to be rebounds. That 4 to 5, or the odds that both of those guys give you 60 points, and we're talking fantasy points, are slim to none. But Trae Young and John Collins can each give you 60 points. Okay, Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, when he comes back healthy, they can both give you 60 points. But what's the odds of Luka Doncic and Tim Hardaway Jr. giving you each 60? Very slim. So that's one of my biggest things. I'll set the lineup up and I'll look at it and say, wait a minute. No, I can't have 2 forwards on the same team. I can't start both of these guys. And the value guy to me is huge. I love the value guy. I've loved it in football. And my favorite guy this year has been Jalen Brunson. I love Jalen Brunson. I don't care what anybody says. $3,100 every single time on DraftKings, and he's giving you 12 to 15 points. It's a steal, and his value doesn't move. And again, look for those guys. They're only going to give you 20 minutes a game, and the other end of what we talked about earlier of taking a guy like Tobias Harris against a bad team in Charlotte and the possibility of a blowout and you not getting those points is with Jalen, you look at the other end. He's a bench guy that those 20 minutes could turn into 32. And the extra 12 minutes could be plus 5 or 6 on his total. And now you're talking 25 points for 3,100. You just won your matchup. So that's one of the biggest things you have to look at. And the last thing I will say is, make it like a Rubik's Cube. Don't just put your first lineup in and stick with it. Look at it. Change guys out. I tell you what, I'll put my first lineup in, and I use the snippet tool on my computer immensely. So what I do I snip that lineup, and I put the windows up on my screen. I literally have 4 or 5 lineups in snippet JPEGs up on my screen, and I'll see what I like first, and I'll wind up taking players from each of those lineups and see if I can fit them into the new lineup. I don't always go with my first lineup because you'll sit there and be like, and this is what happened to me. I would get into it, and I originally would go with my first lineup. And then after it was tip-off, I'd start looking at people I was going against and go, damn, how did they fit those cats into their lineup? But it's because I didn't take the time to bump my points back and forth, and you'd be surprised at what you can fit in a DraftKings lineup. So they're my theories. I love it. I absolutely love daily fantasy. It has been a gold mine to me, and not because I win a lot of money, because I just love playing it. It's very enjoyable. It's such a challenge to try and not compete against 80,000 other people. You're competing against yourself. And it's like, how smart can I be tonight? And how much of a stooge do I look, right? I mean, like, it's the worst. Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, I think that's the same, like, kind of to build off your point. If you're not doing the research and you're not taking the time, you might as well not play. There's a reason that I think it's like the stat is 90% of the money is won by the top 1% of players in DraftKings across all sports. There's pros. There's people that do this for a living. So if you're not going to take the time and you're not going to have some sort of strategy, you might not be right on your strategy all the time, but have a process. Do it. If you don't have time to do the process, you might not want to do a lineup that day in any sport. I mean, I do the same thing with golf and basketball. It's like, it's a thinking man's game. It's like, as soon as people figure out one theory, there's another theory that comes along that you're like, oh, wait, hold on, that might be a good theory. It's like, constantly listen. I think, too, find people that you trust for advice. There's a million podcasts for golf, for baseball, for basketball, for football, everything. Find like 2 or 3 that you trust their opinions and kind of go with the way that they build and pay attention to the way they do it. I think that's really good advice.
I like it. I love that advice. And what I will say to parlay onto that, and it's just good business for anybody. If you're going to listen to those podcasts and you're going to go and roll with those theories, man, send that dude a message or give him a shout out on Twitter and say, yo, thanks to so-and-so, I used his theory, and man, look what happened. Not because you're trying to show anybody up, because you're giving the man respect. You're giving the show respect. I mean, a lot of people forget that. I hate when people because I'll tell you, I know people in particular that will listen to certain shows, take those people's picks, and not even formulate their own opinion. Basically use word for word why that guy picked who he picked and act like it was them. And it's a slap in the face to everybody. So, yes, I listen to a ton of fantasy content. A ton. And if I have a guy, I won't say his name, but a great buddy of mine, he'll sit there all the time and take my lineups and tell me, yo, if I hit, I don't ask him he sends me money. He's like, listen, I hit on your lineup. So, 10%, it could be $5, could be $20, could be 30. But and I tell him that, I don't need that. He's like, nah, it's a respect thing. I didn't do anything. I took your lineup, I clicked it in 30 seconds, I joined a contest. And you know what? It made me think, so I start doing that. There's a couple of people I've done that too. It's just good business, man. It's just a nice respect factor in this fantasy community. Dan, I know you're chomping at the bit. I guarantee you, within those last 10 minutes, you thought of another theory you want to talk about.
No, I haven't thought of another theory. I thought you were going another direction.
Well, we're about an hour in, so I want to take these last 10, 15 minutes and start talking about players. Last week, we kind of talked about individual performances that maybe in 3 games we weren't expecting. We were a little bit surprised at. And I think a lot has changed. Some injuries have derailed some guys. Some guys are playing more minutes than others. So I'm just curious, because you have guys like, Dan mentioned, how long can Tobias Harris keep it up? How long can Andre Drummond keep it up? These are performances, right? I know he's a Detroit native, Jason. I know you're shaking your head. He goes to Cleveland. All of a sudden, he's a stud. I'll tell you what, we talked about in the show, and Jason, go right to you. We talked about that Cleveland team having a ton of fantasy appeal. I mean, Larry Nance Jr., Colin Sexton. This team, Darius Garland. I mean, even though now he's out, I think did he get it on COVID list today? I think he went on COVID something happened to Darius Garland. But again, I mean, you're talking 4 or 5 fantasy potentially, productive guys on a daily basis. Who would have thought Cleveland would be breeding fantasy players, Jason?
Not me, that's for sure. But, we always talk about, for football, we always talk about picking guys that are on good teams, right? Basketball is not like that at all. You can pick that one guy that's on the crap team that is going to put up 30, 35 points in a game. And, like, Cleveland's a good example. Like, they're not that good of a team, but they have 3 or 4 good pieces. And, like, I mean, Drummond, if you watched Cleveland play, Drummond's not that good of a basketball player.
No.
But he's going to get 1 million rebounds. He's going to get a lot of block shots. It's like he's good in fantasy. Good in fantasy is not the same as good in real life. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one.
Yeah, it's a good point about the bad teams. It really is. Because you want guys who are going to log a lot of minutes. And if you're on a bad team, you're not necessarily coming out. You're playing to the end. You're going to log 37, 38 minutes if you're a part of that starting lineup. You're going to get a lot of opportunity, and you're going to be playing against second-team players a lot, right? I mean, all the time. But, Dan, let me ask you this. There's one name that I'm just wondering. I mean, listen, I like the guy. I've always thought he was a good player. I would say decent player, but he's playing like an all-star right now, and that's Fred VanVleet. This cat has been pounding fantasy numbers since day one of this year. Can this guy keep it up? Because I did not expect Fred VanVleet to be a fantasy monster. Did you?
No. When I think I reached out to the other day, I didn't think he was an NBA player.
Yeah.
As of a couple years ago. And then I'm watching the ticker last year of guys getting these monster contracts. I'm like, Fred VanVleet's getting $12 to $15 million a year. What the hell are they thinking?
Yep.
And now he's averaging 22 and almost 6 rebounds a game, 6 assists a game. I'm floored, and I guess again, I have no problem ever admitting when I'm wrong about a player. I was dead wrong about him, and it looks like he is going to keep this going. I mean, that's not a great team, not a lot of options. So,
You're right.
So I think he's going to keep it going. And,
I agree with you.
And let's face it, when you have the run that he's on, his confidence is growing, and that's all it takes. Give me the opportunity. The confidence is building, and I think he is for real. But I'm shocked. I didn't think he belonged in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm with you that he's going to keep it up. I'm convinced he's going to keep it up. I mean, out of the 6 games that he's played, 4 of them have been over 45 points. And that's fantasy points. Don't get that mistaken, but he is a guy, he gets you, rebounds and assists as well as steals. And the one thing I will say about Fred VanVleet was I think that might have happened this year, and the reason why I'm excited about him for the rest of the year is last year when Kawhi Leonard left on that Toronto team, Pascal Siakam was supposed to be the guy. Because we know Kyle Lowry is an all-around great player, but he's not a scoring machine. So Pascal was supposed to be that number one scoring option, and it didn't work out that way. And I think Fred VanVleet said, okay, I need to step up. I need to work on my game, and I need to be that guy. And he's become the number one scoring option in Toronto. And it's actually helped Siakam out a lot. And it's helped Lowry out a lot as well. So I think by him becoming that, indirectly, boosted his value without him even knowing. And I think going forward, because they're not a great team, I think he will continue to be the best option. Rich just said he's the best option on a bad team. Absolutely. I think that's why he continues to go. I'm shocked. He wasn't in my top production, of guys. He really wasn't. But he's really, really played well. Now, John, let me ask you about. I'm going to bring you to Stephen Curry, because I don't know if it was this show or not, but when we talked about top 3 guys. I put Stephen Curry as my number 3. We were talking about MVPs. And a lot of people said I was crazy, which they normally do. But my point being was he's another guy on a bad team. The Golden State Warriors are still trying to find an identity. And it's going to be a couple years before they get it because of the Klay Thompson injury, because of, it's not the same Warriors team. There's not a ton of options. They're still trying to develop guys. James Wiseman looks really good, which I'm really excited about. But my point is, Steph Curry, he didn't tear an ACL. He didn't rupture an Achilles. He broke a bone in his hand. So it wasn't like, is he going to have his hops back? Is he going to have his legs with him? All he needed to do was get that hand strong and be able to shoot the ball. And right now, you're seeing he's a top 5 guard in fantasy right now. And I think that he's going to continue to light it up. Johnny, you see any reason why Steph Curry doesn't continue to be in the top 5 for the rest of the year for fantasy play?
No, he will be. He'll definitely be top 5. No, it's everything you said. The injury was not, one of those physically demanding injuries that, can can mess with your game. Like you said, it was a hand. You shoot the ball. Like it's not an ankle, not a knee. Like it's a hand. So no, and he shoots the heck out of the ball. It's not a good team, but that if he had pieces, he would even be able to do so much more. I mean, it's impressive what he can do with such little talent around him. But no, he stays top 5.
You know what's crazy? He's 32 and been in the league 11 years, and you don't even realize that. Yeah. 11 years. I mean, like, you wouldn't even think it. And he started off slow this year, the first 2 games. I mean, listen, it was the first games back. He only scored 20 in 19. But you look at what he did after that. The best was when he was going up against Dame, and they were going up against Portland. That back-to-back series, he only scored 26 the first game, and he dropped 62, like Rich says, against Dame and CJ McCollum, right? So, I mean, but the telling tale to me is he's getting total rebound numbers, and he's getting those high assist numbers. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's giving you anywhere between 50 and 70 fantasy points 3 out of the last 4 games. That's a huge number. That's that number we're talking about, that beast, like Dan said, right? And again, if you look at Steph Curry's DFS number, he's not that high every day. He's really not. And I don't know if that's because he's not getting the respect of, being the guy once again, and they're just kind of waiting. But I think that number is going to continue to rise. I don't think he's going to be a value for very much longer. I don't. Let me ask you guys this. What do you do? Because I just mentioned Portland. What is your theory behind when you have 2 guys like a McCollum and Damian Lillard? You look at Washington, who has Beal and Westbrook. You look at Wall and Harden. How do you differentiate between the 2? Do you always have the same guy ahead of the other, or do you look for certain things throughout that game? Do you go back at past games? Do you look at what their past performances? How do you decipher between both those guys? And obviously, the guys' numbers are probably a couple $1,000s apart. Do you base it more on that value, or do you go by something different? Jason, how do you do it?
I do a couple different things. So I'm going to look at recent trends first off, and then I look at price, because like Dame and who's the other one? CJ McCollum. Yeah. So those 2 guys, there's not that much of a difference between those guys. McCollum is actually way underpriced. I feel like there's not that much of a difference in their overall points. One's going to get you in the high 40s, one will probably get you in the low 40s. But like you said, there might be $2,000 in price difference. So it's almost like, you remember at the beginning of the football season when Metcalf and Lockett were going off every other week?
Yeah.
It's like, who are you going to play? It was tough to figure out who you're going to play. And I always went with okay, well, there's not much of a difference, but Lockett's $1,000 cheaper. So I'm going Lockett. So I do that a lot with McCollum, to be honest with you. Price and then overall trend, I would say.
I like that. No, I like that because especially those 2 guys, it is a huge drop off. It really is. And if you look at their numbers, the only thing that scares me about McCollum is he's getting better this year, but last year he wasn't consistent day to day. He would drop 25 one night and then he's dropping 10 the following night. Like, he never had that 20 plus consistency, but I think this year he's finally starting to find it. He really is. So Dan, you kind of do something different, or it's kind of the same thing?
No, it's I don't think there is any other way. You have to go with how they're trending, and you have to go with their value. If I built around Westbrook, I can't think of Beal that game. And here's an example. I recently did a lineup with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Couldn't take them both. Tatum's worth more money than Brown, and I love Brown's game right now. So I went with Brown that particular day. So it's trending, how they're trending, and you have to go with the price tag.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. The trend and price, trend and value are huge. They really are, especially in basketball. And John, let me ask you something a little different. I'll be, looking at, forwards, and we're talking about bad players on bad teams. And one of the guys you mentioned earlier was Julius Randle, who is having a monster fantasy season right now. I feel like every time I look at him, he scores 70 points. It's absolutely ridiculous. But is that just a telltale sign of playing in, the New York LOL Knicks, Or is that just Julius Randle actually becoming the player? Because they do have some nice people. You know, RJ Barrett is out there, is starting to get consistent, and I really liked him coming out of college. I think he needed some time. You know, Kevin Knox will eventually be a nice piece. Will he be a absolute starter? I don't think so, but he'll be a nice guy that gives you 20 or 25 minutes. But Julius Randle seems like he's the real deal. So is Julius Randle one of those guys to you that you just every night he's that beast? If he's playing, I'm starting with Julius Randle. He's going in the lineup, and you build around him.
I don't have him at that level yet.
That's why I love it. Yeah, okay.
I don't have him at that level yet. I mean, he's having a heck of a year, and he's really carrying that team. You know, what would he do on a team where he might not be a more of a centerpiece or a focal point? You know, that who knows? I don't know that he's at that level, but on this team right now this year, I mean, they're leaning on him, and he's producing. So, I mean, I like it, but you know, I don't have. He's good, but I don't have him in the elite where it's a must start. So, I mean, I don't have him there.
Hey, listen, that's okay. I think differently. I do. But I get it, and this is why we do this show, and this is why we like different opinions, because everybody formulates their own theories based on their own stats and their own analysis. For me, Julius Randle, he's on a terrible team, and he's balling out, and I don't know if he's balling out because he wants to eventually get moved, or he's balling out to say this is going to be my team. I'm not sure, because eventually that team is going to turn it around, and they do have some nice picks out there. So,
well, if it was your fantasy playoff thing, yeah, I'll take Randle from the Knicks.
He's the only guy we're taking from the Knicks. I like that.
That hands down, no question. Yeah.
You know what, too? He's actually one of those guys that we were talking about earlier that he's better in fantasy. He looks better in fantasy than he is in real life. Like, you watch the Knicks, and it's like, yeah, he's the best player, but he's not. I mean, he's not a superstar. But you look at him in fantasy, like you said, and he's putting up 50 points. I play him every day. Every single time he's in the lineup, I play him just because of the value he brings, and I like the big guys. But yeah.
It's so funny because with Julius Randle, my son, he will not let me live it down. Like, he drafted a fantasy basketball team, and he was like, "Hey, Dad, what do you think of my line?" I was like, "Julius Randle, he stinks, dude. What do you drafted?" So every night he's like, "Dad, Julius Randle's trash, huh? Look at my phone, 70 points." Like, whatever, man. Get out. All of a sudden, dude, he wants to produce. Like, you drafted him in like the third round. I'm sorry, but Julius Randle was not a third round pick to me. But hey, listen, it worked out for you. Congratulations, buddy.
He's almost like Kevin Love was. Remember Kevin Love when he was on the Timberwolves? Like, how he would just put up like 26 and 14 every single night, like on a terrible team. That's kind of what he reminds me of.
No, Rich says tallest midget in the circus, Randle. Dude, I love it, man. I love it. That's hilarious. I love it. Oh, my Lord. That is great.
Randle is a top 9 producer this year, and he kind of fits one of your theories with another player, exactly what Jay said. You don't love his game, but the outside stacking is Alec Burks. You put Burks with Randle, that fits that's a great stack right there.
Yeah, I like that. Or even like I said, you have Burks, who Burks is having. I know he's dinged up a little bit right now, but he's having a really productive year. And that's another guy. He's playing for another deal, man. He's not going to stick with the Knicks. He's going to be a guy that's going to moved at the trading deadline, hopefully to a contender. Exactly. They try it last year with the Sixers. Maybe this year they can move them to Brooklyn, or they get, who knows? Maybe they move them to the Sixers again. You just never know. I mean, but that he is the perfect trade candidate for midseason. So let me get into this. We got a couple minutes left, and let's go around the room real fast. And I just want one guy. Give me one guy who you feel has been overhyped in DFS and fantasy basketball. I already have my guy, but I'll go last. A guy that either was hyped up in the preseason, who it's been 6-7 games and hasn't really, shown the ability to reach those projections. I know it's early, but still, you can still talk about it. Or a guy you think is, guys are still hyping him up on a daily basis, and you're not seeing it. John, I'll go with you first. Who's a guy for you? Because I know you're the master spreadsheet guy. I'm sure you got a guy right in front of you that you're looking at, and maybe in your mind, he's just not there in your opinion. That means he's got too many. Look at him.
No,
that's what that means.
No. Go to someone else. How's that?
How's that? Dan, I'll go right to Dan. Go ahead, Dan. You're always ready.
Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Jimmy's definitely not been Jimmy this year.
No.
Definitely not. Now, is he a guy that you feel was overhyped in the preseason, or is he a guy that you feel is still being overhyped now, even though he's not being productive?
Well, he was top 10 in the preseason, so I think he was overhyped in the preseason based on his current production. So I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that's fine. Now, do you think no? Because it's either or. It's either or. So, do you think with Jimmy, because Jimmy scared me coming in this year because he played
you said that
so
too.
hard.
I remember the preview show. Yeah,
remember? He was one of my guys. Yeah. I was worried. Oh, I mean, listen, the guys. I know he takes care of himself. I get it. But this was a shorter offseason, and he balled out at 31, 32 years old. And I just thought the man needed a break. Right, he put that team on his back at that age, and I was just scared for him coming in. And I think it's a good point, a really, really good point. Rich says, overhyped preseason, that playoff run made him more popular. Exactly, Rich. Completely agree. Jason, who you got?
You know what, too, about Jimmy Butler? That team's good now. I mean, that team's not – he's not the only guy on that team anymore. They got a lot of options. I mean, Hero's good, and they got a lot of good, solid options on that team.
That's a good point.
I have two of them, actually. I think they're both going to bounce back. I'll say that first. But Luka hasn't been very good this year at all, and neither has Anthony Davis, which is kind of surprising to me. It's almost like I feel like the Lakers are kind of in that like coasting mode already, where they're just going to give some days off every once in a while. They're going to still have a good record. They'll finish with one of the top seeds, and then they'll turn it on for the playoffs. But, yeah, Anthony Davis has been – I mean, he's almost in the 30s every single game, which is good. But now when you're $10,000, it's not good.
No. I completely agree. That's a good the good word you wrote in there, or you said in there, was coasting. I like that because that's what we watched that Lakers team do. They coast to maybe 10 games left in the season, and all of a sudden they're balling out, right? And they're getting ready. So that's a good point because it brings us back to that bad team versus good team analogy. Guys that you don't have to worry about, opposed to guys that you do have to worry about with playing time. So that's it. That's a good pick. I like that. So John, you have somebody yet? Oh, go ahead, Dan. What's up?
No, to support what Jason said, you could go with Sabonis, who I love this year, who is putting up better numbers than Davis, and he's probably $1,500 to $2,000 cheaper every night.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Sabonis boned me a couple nights, so he's on Jigsaw's shit list. I'll tell you that right now.
Played on the wrong night.
Yeah, I've thrown in a call. He's boned me hard.
Well, Gary Trent did that to me once, and you loved him, so Trent boned the hell out of me.
Now, I still love Gary Trent.
Once you ask people on Twitter, once you get that Jigsaw web, you don't get out very easily. Okay, I'm just letting you know. So Keenan Allen, he's in the Jigsaw web. He boned me a couple. I'll never draft that dude ever. No Keenan Allen for me. He boned me 2 years in a row.
I'm big into DFS golf. I have a list in my phone of like 7 guys that I will never play no matter what. It's like every time I play them, they miss the cut, or they screwed me one time, or they cost me money or something. I don't care what they are. I don't care if they're free. I won't play them.
You have to, man. It's a pride thing. You know what I mean? Like, come on, bro. You're a professional. You need to man up. Like, this is what you need to produce. You got a lot riding on this, right? I know they worry about it, right? What's that, Dan?
They have to produce for Tony.
Yes, exactly. Jigsaw needs to win because I can't have people coming at me every single day if I'm losing. The cred's not there. You know what I mean? It's not helping. So John, did you think of a guy for me? I know you're.
Yeah, but before we even get into that, I don't have anyone that's ever on my do not draft list.
No.
There is no such thing to me. There is a guy that I may like 200 guys better, but he will not be on a do not draft list. It's just he will go before I ever get to that level that I'm comfortable taking him. Just a little bit of it. I never X a guy. I'm never going to cross a guy out and say I will never. Yes, there's no question. Like, I might take a guy in the 13th round that's a second-round pick. Obviously never going to happen, but I will not X him out.
John's a business guy.
My list is called dead to me, and they are dead to me. I will never play them.
I like that. I like it. I definitely have a dead to me list.
I have a dead to me team list for football. The Chargers have burned me so many times for suicide weeks and stuff like that. I hate the Chargers when it comes to that.
I'll throw the Patriots backfield into that one. Yeah, I will never have the Patriots backfield.
Yeah,
no.
Let me tell you, the Patriots backfield, I will never touch a Patriots running back. And I swear to God, you're already giving me back the memories. You're all no, I'm going to say the name. Lawrence friggin' Maroney. Okay? Lawrence friggin' Maroney. I'll never draft a Patriots running back as long as I live. I'm telling you that right now. Because he boned me so hard. They're not like you getting hyped up in the preseason and you're like, oh, yeah, Lawrence Maroney. And then Monday Night Football. Right. Yeah, Monday Night Football, you look at, I'm like, yo, who's in the backfield? Who is Kevin Folk? Where's Lawrence Maroney? There's Maroney. You don't even have a freaking helmet on. Like, what's going on here? He makes a cameo appearance. Like, I'm done. I'm done with the Patriots backfield. Absolutely. See, I'm all hyped up over that. Thanks, John. See what you did? You had to mention Patriots backfield. I have nightmares of Lawrence Maroney in my head. My God. So you have a player, John?
Zion Williamson.
No, you can't take Zion. That's my guy.
Rewind the tape. Rewind the tape.
Just cut it out. Yeah, I mean, there's so much name value there. I mean, especially even if you're doing season-long drafts. I mean, he was so hyped up coming out of college. I mean, he's a physical specimen, but he's not a top 5 player. You know what I mean?
Not
he
even
gets
close.
talked about with the elites.
Listen, I got killed for saying, and I'm waiting because I don't like to toot my own horn. Nah, I'm just kidding. I always do, but I always said that I would have drafted John Morant before Zion Williamson. And I've tweeted out several times, Morant greater than Williamson. And everybody told me I was crazy. A couple people agree with me, but most of the part people said I was nuts. And the only reason why, again, I will give you exactly why. I just feel like John Morant is more built for the NBA game today than Zion Williamson. And I don't think Zion can do everything people think he can do on a consistent basis. And he's showing that. This year, he's already showing that, in my opinion. He can be an absolute beast and a problem. But people also said it about Larry Johnson when he came out of UNLV. And Larry Johnson, grandmama, I love Larry, but he wasn't all that. What's that, Dan?
Yeah. He had a bad back.
He did, but
it goes to your point. Big guy taking a pounding night in, night out.
Yeah,
it's kind of that same thing. They almost have a similar build too. It's like that 6'8", like pretty thick guy. I mean, like Zion Williamson is. I think we talked about this on the show a few weeks back. It's like he's 280 pounds. It's fine when he's 21 years old, but what's going to happen when he's 28 years old?
Well,
like a few more pounds, he's going to be 300 pounds. I mean.
Yeah, Rich said right here, he put on LBs on in the off season, and it wasn't even that long of an all season. I mean, what was he going to Popeyes like every day, like or McDonald's or Burger King? I don't freaking know, but it wasn't even that long. He's young.
It's only going to get. He's young. It's only going to get worse. Trust me. I would know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I said to my son all the time. He's eating at midnight. He's like, "Dad, I'm hungry." I'm like, "Yo, be careful. Look at your future, bro."
Tatum's been good.
You're looking at your future. I always say, look. This your future, dog. So be careful. You know what I mean?
Look, even so, I mean, think about what Shaquille O'Neal looked like in LSU and what he looked like towards the end of his NBA career. Okay, now look at what Zion is now. Like compare that what Shaq did in terms of the LBs. I mean, that's a
good point. It's a good point.
You could also go the other way, though. I mean, Charles Barkley knew he had to lose weight, and he dropped a lot of weight. So someone will get in his ear, hopefully.
Well, Yeah, and I think you're right, but I think Charles played in such a different time that I don't think these players act like it's in their best interest to do that. I mean, we watch that now.
Well, they get the money so quickly. Yeah,
right. Exactly. They don't have to wait for that huge contract. They
get it right off the top. With Embiid.
Yeah, what's that, John?
He could go work out with Embiid. I'm sure they'd have a good workout regimen.
Actually, Joe looks good this year. Chick-fil-A. Remember, he had the Chick-fil-A milkshake addiction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Rick checking in says Tatum, although I might just be hating. Nah, listen, Rick, I agree with you.
I like Tatum.
Yeah, but I think Jaylen Brown's kind of excelled more than Jason Tatum.
Well, Jaylen Brown's been a beast, and what was his knock coming in the league? Shooting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't shoot.
Shooting like 58%, I believe.
There's a dude he must be working
on his game.
Yep, absolutely.
And then another guy that comes to mind, Tone, that's not been doing well, and I love him, is Devin Booker.
Yes. Yes, there's another guy. And that team,
he was an MVP sleeper for me.
Well, it's funny because a lot of people say Chris Paul is a fantasy killer, right? And Chris Paul goes to Phoenix, and then all of a sudden now Devin Booker's really not the same guy. You have DeAndre Ayton out there still not really producing. Mikal Bridges looks good. He looks like I still can't believe we gave him up for nothing. Zaire Smith, give me a break. That dude's probably working at Jiffy Lube right now. And then all of a sudden, it's ridiculous. But don't even get me started. I already went off once. I want to go off again. But I'll give you, just John stole my guy. What I'll give you is my second guy is LaMarcus Aldridge. I think LaMarcus Aldridge is age.
Jason mentioned him once too, I think.
What's that?
Yeah, he's done.
I think Jason mentioned him as a guy that killed him in his DFS once.
Yes, he did. Yeah, and again, LaMarcus was always the guy for the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, you're that big. You see the knees, they start to break down. Your body breaks down a little bit. He's not. I mean, you have DeMar DeRozan out there now. You have DeJounte Murray who's starting to come on. But LaMarcus, nah, man. I think he's done. He really is. He's definitely not going to be that guy that we expect. I know he was in to just come back, only logged 25 minutes. He's not even hitting 30 minutes this year. You can already tell. And I mean, he's already had 2 games that have been pretty poor from real life and fantasy perspective. So I'm not big on LaMarcus Aldridge. I think this is kind of going to be a down year for him. But people are still talking about him being that guy. I don't understand. He's 27th ranked as a forward, and his start percentage is only 37%, in DFS. So I don't know why people are still talking about LaMarcus as being that go-to guy anymore. I think he's done, and he's not in any of my lineups. And I don't think it's going to change. I think it's just actually going to get worse for LaMarcus Aldridge for sure. Rich says Chris Paul, where fantasy players go to die. He's calling me. I'll tell you, man. I love CP3 as the player. As I've always said that Chris Paul to me is the best player in the NBA that nobody ever talks about. I don't know why. I still think it's because most of his years were in Charlotte and nobody even worried about Charlotte. I mean, Jesus Christ, Charlotte. Who do you think about in Charlotte? David Wingate, for Christ's sake? Mike Jaminski? I mean, think about some of the players that played in Charlotte, right? I mean, so at the end of the day, I think it's just unfortunate. But Chris Paul, regular game, I love watching CP3. I think he's fantastic, but not
that team's good too. The Suns are good. I mean, they're not a crappy team anymore. They're legit.
No, it's just, and that's the problem. I think because they have so many mouths to feed that these guys.
Well, the balance,
yeah, Devin Booker's not going to be scoring 50 a game now. He's not going to have to. But
I didn't say he's a bad ball player, but he's been a DFS disappointment, really.
Yeah, I like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
He got paid, right? Or is he still
got
for a contract?
Fat cat syndrome? Is that
no,
what you're saying?
He got the max, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, at least he got paid before Chris Paul came because he probably wouldn't get that number if he didn't.
Hey, he tried to fight Paul George the other night. Did you see that one?
No.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They were going at each other. Yeah.
I think I'd take PG-13 in that one.
Yeah, that's not a good matchup for Booker.
No, I don't think so. But he got to pick on other players. Like he needs to go after someone. I don't know, maybe like Korkmaz when he comes back. Go after Korkmaz, Devin. You know what I mean? Maybe you can win that matchup. I'll tell you what, too. Speaking of Korkmaz, before we get out of here, I'm a big, I look at everything during the NBA game. I love looking at the sidelines. It's a shame I don't have the fans looking at it anymore, but I look at, and Korkmaz, I get it. I am not in this millennial society, and obviously with the shape that I'm in, I'm not wearing tight, skinny jeans. But, dude, I don't understand. Korkmaz's jeans were so goddamn tight. I don't even know how he was walking around. I'm like, bro, I would be, number one, I wouldn't be able to talk. And I'm just gonna say, his balls must have been wrapped to his thighs. Dude, come on, Frankie. Number one, you got no. I've said it before. He's got a terrible hair game and a terrible kick game. His sneakers are terrible. His shoe game is horrendous. Somebody needs to talk to him. And now he's wearing skinny jeans like New Kids on the Block. I can't. I'm sorry. Frankie, I'm sorry, but they're the things that just stand out to me. I can't help it.
Tone, that's the Euro nut huggers. I mean, some of the golfers wear them too, right, Jason? The European guys wear those really tight jeans or tight pants in golf too.
I don't get it because they're bending over to get their damn ball out of the hole. I mean,
they yell for because their pants split.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Listen, I know. I'm just hating because I can't wear some damn skinny jeans, but that's okay. It is what it is. I wouldn't wear them.
I don't feel like. I was gonna say I don't feel like any dude should wear skinny jeans. That's just not something I'll ever do. I just can't do it.
It's a violation.
Yeah, it's a huge violation. Right? Complete violation. To all manhood, it's a complete violation. Sorry.
No skinny jeans, no Crocs, no Uggs for men.
Yeah. Don't even get me started. Because I have and not in a good way. I hate feet. Okay, so listen, I'm telling you something right now, bro. If you're wearing sandals, get out. I want nothing. You can't be wearing sandals. I don't listen. There's one thing that God created that aren't pretty, and that's feet. Nobody needs to see your dogs walking around. Nobody. Cover them up with some socks. I am the guy who wears the socks with the slides. That's me. I'm that guy. I'm going to tell you that right now because I don't want to see toes. They're not nice to look at, man.
What he doesn't realize is we did this podcast throughout the summer, and I always had my toes on. I'm sorry. Yeah, hey, look, this ain't no fashion show. It's summertime. I'm comfy, man. It's like what make me put shoes on in the summertime? It's like wearing a tux.
Well,
no, thank you.
I'll tell you what.
I need to be out there, man.
Okay, well, you remember that when we start getting back in the studio, your ass better be wearing socks, or I want nothing to do with you. You keep the remote thing going.
Hey, from May to September, we just can't hang out. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Look. See, Rich said Fred Flintstone, Barney Rubble feet. Exactly. It's like the movie Boomerang. Everybody see the movie Boomerang with Eddie Murphy back in the day? So if you watch the movie, it's a 1992 movie. Watch Boomerang. He would bring women home, and then he would wake up and he'd slowly take the covers off to look at their feet, and if their feet were all banged up, he's like, all right, you got to go. If you don't have nice feet, you got to go. My thing is, I don't even want to look. To me, there is no nice feet. Okay, there is no. You go out there and get a pedicure. Nah, man, just stop. No. Save it. Save your Crocs and your Jesus sandals and whatever they're called. I want nothing to do with them. Nothing. I can't handle it. But I don't even know what they're called. I call them Jesus sandals. I don't know what else to call them, but I can't deal with them, man. I can't deal with them.
I got a fantasy question for you guys.
Yeah, let's go. Let's
roll. Give me one of three. Was it Obi Toppin?
Toppin, yeah.
The rookie for the Knicks.
Okay.
Him, Anthony Edwards, or DeAndre Hunter?
Ooh. Are you just talking about? You're talking about for fantasy?
Yes.
I like Hunter. I do.
I like Hunter. Yeah, Hunter's my pick too.
Yeah, I like that Atlanta team. He's got Trae Young feeding him the ball. Pierce has got that team looking really good out there. He's got John Collins. There's a lot to like with that Atlanta team. So I like DeAndre a lot. Look, everybody's checking in. Look, I think we're right. Dave, we didn't even get the Dave. Rich Hunter, Al Hunter, Rick Hunter. Yeah, man, I'm a DeAndre Hunter guy. What about you, Dan? Are you going to break the mold here?
No. Hunter was the first guy that popped in my head.
No.
Yeah,
he's consistent. He puts up consistent numbers. I mean, if you look at his trends, he's like always around the same numbers. I mean, he's real consistent. So I like Hunter a lot.
It was OB Hunter, and who was the third guy?
Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards. Yeah,
I didn't catch his third guy.
Edwards.
Yeah,
Anthony
Hunter.
Edwards.
And I like Anthony.
Yeah, Hunter.
Edwards.
No, I'm going Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter to me, and he's a low value DFS guy as well. I mean, he's a really good value. Rich says consensus. That's a first on here. I know, right? It's actually the first time. Skinny jeans and DeAndre Hunter, man, we're good. We have a consensus.
John's two favorite things.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, some of them damn CDs he picked out last night, I bet you some of those cats are wearing them damn ball huggers. I guarantee you that. 100%. Hey, man.
I told you there was a bunch of weird crap in there, too.
You were definitely well-versed, my man. I can tell you that 100%. But listen, we went about 5 minutes over, but that's okay. We had a good time, as always. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. I hope we brightened up your night. You know what I mean? But Al says, I've been in and out. Are we on for Sunday? For Friday, yes, Al, yes. I did mention that earlier. So anybody listening who was in the Heat Ratio Sports Fantasy League, well, I'll tell you what happened. And it's my own fault. I didn't realize this. So I am in a DFS analyst league with guys from RotoWire, RotoWorld, things of that nature. So I have to be on my game. But the thing is, I didn't formulate that contest. So I just thought that every contest automatically resize. So if we have 35 guys and only 30 people put their lineup in, I thought it would resize the prize money from 30. No. After 20, they don't resize and they cancel your contest. So I had no idea. So our contest will now only be 20. But here's the thing. I had a lot of people from outside, public people that I don't even know that kind of joined the league. I'm going to keep this as a Heat Ratio centric league. So if you are a Heat Ratio follower like Rich, yes, I will send you the link. Andre, Al, us four right here, family and friends of ours that are avid listeners, that's who will be in this league. If there's any other spots open, I'll let people know. But I want to make sure, because now once we start Friday, it won't get canceled. It will be every Friday. And if 17 people sign up, it's going to resize the prize fund from 17 people. We'll keep it at $5 because I'll be honest with you, I'm in a ton of leagues and I don't want to spend any more money. But it's actually not bad. I do. The other leagues I do are $5, and I can tell you it's like the first place is like 40-something, second place is like 25, and third place is like 12 or 15. So you're tripling your money finishing third place, which isn't a bad thing. So yes, we will be on for Friday. Also, what I want to say, Heat Ratio Sports, again, give us a follow on the YouTube page. Give us a follow on the Twitter account. We have some major news coming. Again, we have shows lined up. There's only one day out of the week that we're not filled yet, but I think it is coming really soon. I have to talk to the guy tonight, but I will announce this tomorrow, but for people in the podcast, it'll be after that, so you'll find out then. We are going to have a Major League Baseball show. Jason knows Josh Gamble, who is a really good Major League Baseball analyst. Again, part of the fantasy community. He will be running his own show on the Heat Ratio Sports Network. And again, what I will tell you guys is, for all the listeners, what the vision is to have content every day of the week. Now, we also have our own lives, and we also have families, and we also have other jobs. So even though we're going to say, hey, every Sunday night at 8 o'clock, we're going to be live, listen, there are going to be weeks where we're not live. There's going to be weeks where, we may have to push times. And there's also going to be weeks where we're going to say, listen, we couldn't be live, but we recorded the show a day before, and it's going to get played at that time and aired. That's why the YouTube page is important, so you can communicate with us through comments on there. We were all going to have access to it. We'll all be able to talk to you guys, and we'll be posting more frequently on our Facebook and Twitter account as well. So again, baseball, football, hockey, basketball, golf, cornhole. Yes, I said it. Cornhole, okay? We are going to cover everything. NCAA, college flashpoint. My man Jamar, he joined the show last night. He played at Clemson. He is a former college athlete. He is a high school coach. He knows a ton about the college game. We're actually going to talk college softball and baseball. Listen, we want to do something unique, and we're bringing everybody together. It could be an hour, 2 hours every day, but we're going to be there for whoever wants to listen. And hit us up, man. As you see with these shows, through the threads, we answer. Hit us through Facebook, for Twitter, whatever. I mean, that's what it's all about, because we learn from you just like you learn from us. So, again, Heat Ratio Sports Family is like I like to preach. I do like to talk about a lot. I don't know how my mouth doesn't get dry. It is what it is. But, again, as always, for Dan Green, who is going to be our NHL guy, for me, John, and Jason, who are going to continue to talk everything under the sun. Dan will talk that over, but Dan's going to have his own show. Flyer and Ice, he's got some very, very special stuff.
Hey, I have some breaking news. I have some breaking news. Markelle Fultz, torn ACL, out for the season.
Wow.
I'll tell you what. I killed Markelle Fultz. I did. But at the end of the day, I never wished for something like that to happen.
No, I want him to do well. Yeah,
that's a shame. Sucks. And he was starting to, he was starting to come back a little bit this year. And for a kid who's had a mental issue, that's tough, man. Yeah. That's going to be tough. Yeah. Ooh, man. I'll tell you, man, that's going to be poor Markelle. Shout outs go out, Markelle, man.
You almost said rest in peace.
I did. You know what? I did. You caught that. I'm like, oh my God. Hey, that is not
rehab
good, man.
in peace. Rehab in peace.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh my God, I think I caught myself. That's bad juju right there. 100%. That's so bad juju.
Oh man.
But again, everybody, as always, Dan, Jason, John, for myself, give us a follow. All our personal Twitter accounts as well. Heat Ratio Sports. Everybody, as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you very, very soon.